Okay, so in this last part, I want to bring the watchman and the gatekeeper and the intercessor together and kind of go over a little bit of how they differ from one another, since we've given kind of a rough view of who they are, and then how they're going to have to work together because of what God is bringing forth. Remember, he said, I am bringing a new movement of the watchmen. The watchmen come from a very different place than the intercessor and the gatekeeper. Those two, the intercessor and gatekeeper, come from more of a perspective of bringing forth what is into the seen realm, what they can see. An intercessor does have a taste of what is in heaven, and then bringing it until they can see it come into the earth realm. The gatekeeper is the one that is establishing and guarding what has already been. So I'm going to give you the definitions of the differences between the three, and then we'll discuss it a little bit on what I can see from where God has been showing me and taking me in this over the last month or so. So an intercessor is focused in on petitioning heaven and advocating for God's mercy, blessing, or intervention. Watchmen, on the other hand, are more focused on discerning and proclaiming warnings or revelation. We're discerning and proclaiming warnings and revelation. An intercessor is seeing, petitioning heaven for what they've heard or what the prophets have said, the watchman has said, and bringing that into a place until it breaks through and bringing it in. So they touch a little bit on the unseen from the perspective of what they want to be seen in the natural realm. Do you see what I'm saying? But their emphasis is more is seeing the natural shifted. What's in heaven shifted to the earth. A watchman is always looking out to see what might be coming before us, before it's even seen. There's a different perspective, and they are coming from heaven to gain revelation. They come from a place of discerning the revelation of what God is saying, looking at dreams, looking at visions, bringing that revelation into a place so that they can give that information, be it a warning or a blessing, into the intercessor's hands as well as into the gatekeeper. The watchman is standing there, like we've said, to give to the gatekeeper the go on whether to open or to shut the gate because of what is coming. The gatekeeper, most of the time, is focused in on what he sees in the city. He is at the gate. Decisions are made at the gate. Judgments are made. Articles of business happened there. You know, it was where court was taken, was at the gate. But at that gate, he is mainly looking in while the watchman is looking out for what is unseen that could possibly come to the gate, so that the gatekeeper can shut the gate or open the gate for the blessing that's coming. But then it's all about looking back in again at what he sees. Whereas the gatekeeper difference is gatekeepers are focused on guarding what is already established. Like I said, what's inside the gate, making sure that is maintained and taken care of. They ensure that nothing unclean or out of alignment with God enters the spiritual domain they oversee. That's a huge piece. And I'm going to dive into that in just a minute because of the angle that the gatekeeper is coming from and the angle that the watchman is coming from. This is a place of contention. The last part is the watchmen warn of approaching danger, while intercessors focus on advocating through prayer. The intercessor is the go-between many times between the watchman and the gatekeeper. They're right there in the middle. They're advocating to see what they can see the watchman saying come into the earth realm, while the watchman is turned in to make sure that things are established, they're in a right order, and that there is a purity. They're guarding the purity of the movement. So many times what happens is, because the watchman cannot understand, the watchman can, wait, let me tell you the other way. The gatekeeper cannot understand the way that the watchman receives and what he is receiving because he's never seen it. It is hard for him to trust the watchman to bring what he's bringing to the gatekeeper, because a gatekeeper's responsibility is to guard and make sure something or nothing gets in there that would damage what has been established, because he's centered on what already is established. Whereas the watchman is trying the best that they can with their ability, because of the way they see is unseen. It is not natural in the eye of being able to see something naturally. There is a conflict. It's a contention that you might, gatekeeper says, you, watchman, might be trying to bring something in that's going to ruffle the establishments that's there. And until you can explain it to me in a way that I can receive it from you, I'm not going to trust you with it. But what will happen ultimately is, because they won't hear, there will be at the gate. The enemy will make it to the gate because the gatekeeper can't see the unseen. The watchman can. And so there's this tension that is established that is forcing these two to not work together. And it is of the utmost importance in the day ahead that all three of these are working together. And so with that, we have to begin as watchmen to begin to allow the Lord to show us how to bring what we bring in a way where the gatekeepers are more open to trust us. And we and the gatekeepers have got to hear us. Because what is going to happen in this movement, they're going to have to trust what they cannot understand. And we're going to have to try to explain something that is not explained in ABC 1, 2, 3 outline form. Because most of the ones that are gatekeepers, it's more of an outline. It's a structure, order. They bring structure, order. Ours is fluid. It is of the Spirit. It's not, it doesn't move. Theirs is of the Spirit. Don't get me wrong, but it's more on the establishment of truth and what is can be many times missed. And I'll do this in another podcast on apostles and prophets, because I'm getting a ton on that one, of how they're missing each other. This can happen the same way in this place, is the gatekeepers and the watchmen are missing each other, because there is a spiritual side of the unseen, which is the world we live. It is the real world that will last forever. Remember, the temporal, what you can see is fading away. It is the establishment of what is unseen that lasts forever. So the watchmen are in a place of receiving what will last forever, what will be seen coming forth, positive or negative. But the gatekeepers have to be those that understand there is a higher perspective that we're looking at, and we cannot completely explain it in an outline way. You're going to have to both blend each other and come into that, because this is what's happening in this movement. This movement of the watchman, the true watchman that desire for this to work. What God is doing within those watchmen is that he is causing there to be a place where these watchmen are finding the gatekeepers and finding the intercessors that will hear them. If a watchman in this move ahead is unable to find a gatekeeper that will hear them, they will move on and find those gatekeepers that will receive them. This is part of the new move that is coming. The watchmen are not going to stay in an old place where there is no room for them to express the way that they were created to express and be told, bring it back another way, and then maybe I'll receive what you have to say. Because what's happening is God will move on with the use of the watchmen, and he will give them those that are of the gatekeepers, established gatekeepers that will hear the new sound that is coming from the watchmen. The watchmen are the trumpeters that are bringing forth the warnings. And as I know I'm just beating this to death, but it is the movement of the watchmen. It is not the movement of the intercessors. It is not a movement of the gatekeepers. What is pushed forward right now is a movement of the watchmen, because the watchmen will help us establish and safeguard us so that the intercessors can birth it and the gatekeepers can actually hold it, maintain it, and take it to a new level. Okay, so this is just very vital for us to get right now. And if you are a gatekeeper, I really say to you, open yourself up to know that you may carry a little bit of something else, just like I carry one aspect of the intercessor, and I may not be the one that's establishing the gates and looking at the body within, but I'm mainly a watchman, and I need to be strengthened in what I am. Each of us needs to be strengthened in those areas and be willing to accept the other for who they are, and not try to conform them to the way that we see things. That's one of the biggest problems. And as watchmen already, I'm going to say this, there can be a tendency to have a chip on our shoulder as we're growing in how we perceive and see, because so many times it is pushed to the side. It will not be received. And then later on, you have the gatekeepers announcing after 6 months, 8 months, here, this is where we are, look where we are, when the watchmen were proclaiming that or trying to safeguard us from something, but then the something happens, and yet the watchmen are dismissed as though they never had it. And this portion of that has to shift. It has to shift because of where we're going. God is establishing the watchmen in a way so that they can safeguard, so that we can really not only take territory, but we can establish it and hold it, because the principalities and powers have been pushed down into the earth realm in this time and season, because God is saying it is time for my ecclesia, it is time for my priesthood to deal with the strongholds. They are more afraid of us than we are of them. But if they can ensue or infuse into us the divisions based off of how we come into the place of the priesthood, come from the perspective of the priesthood that we hold, they can keep us from moving forward together. This is part of why earlier in my video, not in this series, but just saying about some things that were coming up to the birthplace specifically, I was talking to us about some events that are coming up where we can join with other groups, meaning one of the groups that we can gather with is a group that's called the Altar, and they are established at the police station. And this altar has been going on for a very, very long time, and they are a gatekeeper ministry. It is a ministry that is guarding the gates and has a large intercessory team that is interceding for the things that these gatekeepers are guarding the city from. and to come in and to come out. They are prophetic. They have a flow of the prophetic, but they are not watchmen. And the watchman anointing that God is ushering in, if we can bring these together in a threesome, as one, with the aspects of what the watchman can bring, there is going to be an exponential amount of influence or movement that we can bring across the greater Houston area. The reason I focus it on there is because that's the area I'm from, and what I see with hearing from this this gatekeeper ministry is that one aspect is they work with the civil government. They work with the government in the natural, in the civil realm. And one of the aspects that they have brought up was that there is probably 5,000 Houston policemen that are in charge of this greater Houston area, with a population that most cities with the population we have would have 20,000 policemen. And when I heard this, which to them, because they're guarders, right? They guard. To them, that says that this city is very open for the attack of the enemy to come. With what they can see through the natural civil order that we have in place, with the policemen that are there, the perspective is we're open and we are vulnerable to some kind of attack because of the lack of manpower. God said to me, after I heard that, this is where you come in. This is where the watchmen within this city can come in. What if the watchmen of the city connect with the gatekeepers of the city and the intercessors, finding the areas that have issues or where there is principalities and strongholds set up, and the watchmen go into those territories, have the dreams, have the visions, come before the Lord, taking those pieces to him and saying, Lord, what is it that you're doing here? And bring that back into a realm that we begin to see what can't be established in a natural sense, because we're limited with police, is actually displayed by the movement and interaction of the watchman, intercessor, and gatekeepers together. What if the establishment of the watchman in this time can bring forth something that hinders what the enemy has advanced so far into, and then begins to push out that is holding a territory for coming into the fullness of what heaven is actually releasing. So I see this as an incredible opportunity for us to be a prototype. The word has been consistent over Houston, over this region, that we are a prototype. And I know that every single state, every single nation, every single city has a benefit to the world as a whole. So it's not that we are special, but there is something that we carry of the glory of God that tried to come here, that is now about to come to fruition. And that expression is going to come from a place that we have not seen before. It will not come from what has been established. It will be what hasn't been established yet. And that comes out of a relationship of the three working together, but with an emphasis right now on the watchman anointing being what they are, and allowing them to be heard for the benefit that they have to bring to the other two as a whole. Lord, I thank you for what you are doing to try to establish three different segments of your priesthood that are desiring to see the exact same effect, which is the glory of your Son coming to this earth, where the Holy Spirit in the demonstration of power is expressed throughout this land, where other people will see what we have done and desire for that. Not because of of seeing us as individuals, but seeing us corporately in a way that has not been seen before. Lord, I thank you for every watchman, intercessor, gatekeeper that is grabbing these messages and going, that's me. Oh, I see that. I'm more like that. But Lord, now I thank you for what you're doing on a corporate level, calling us to draw into one another, draw in together, draw in to be those that make a pack, come into a unity in our diversity that brings forth a display that can then be taught to others of how you establish a priesthood that causes a city to come into transformation and reformation, that births something that is beyond what we've ever known. Lord, I thank you that you have said you are saving the latter that you release will be a greater display of the former. Lord, that you didn't withhold from any of us anything, that a wicked city that is a pagan city like Houston, I'm saying it to you, Houston is a pagan city, that you can take a pagan city and you can turn it upside down and you can cause it to be a city that brings the greatest display of glory to your name and to your Son. Father, I thank you for what you're doing. I thank you for the establishment of these three together. But Lord, I say, let the watchmen arrive. Let them arise, let them arrive, and let them be heard in the days ahead for their purpose and the significance of what they carry is needed in this time to establish the breakthrough from the intercession and to bring forth a establishment or something that exists that can be brought into a display of you that we've never seen before. Lord, let the gatekeepers let go of that is holding them from receiving the fullness of your Spirit, that causes them to work in order over the movement of your Spirit. And Lord, I ask that the watchmen would move away from just being those that receive and release what is of the Spirit, to grab a hold of those pieces of order that you're needing us to grab a hold of. And that the intercessors in between would birth this between these two positions to bring it into a fullness where we can then rejoice together at what you have done. Lord, you are so amazing. You are creating with the sounds that come out of our mouths. And Lord, I thank you for who you are and how you use us. I bless y'all today. Have a great Christmas season. Okay, bye.